I coached and was very, very fortunate to have a great group of kids each year. And they grew through the program over a 3-year period. So they had a great knowledge base that they transferred to the incoming kids, and ultimately attended World 3 out of 5 years. And the teams were very successful at World. In some way to transfer knowledge from current coaches, former coaches, to the new coaches, so that you don't feel you're completely lost and just having a difficult time trying to come up to speed. So this program is something we came up with, trying to do a very compact program to touch upon very specific items. Tonight we're going to look at the team structure, how to guide your team, team bonding, leadership roles, as well as exploring the project problem and how do you move forward with that. Understanding what the rubrics are so that you can have your team and all of the members understand those rubrics, and they can successfully present their information at the time they need to before the judges. Then we'll take a look at some resources, try to figure out how we can direct you to things online to kind of move you along in the direction you need to go. And then we'll take a look at robot strategy and the early mission strategy ideas to see where you are with your teams and how we can help with you moving that direction. So we're going to do this in a little bit of a question answer format. We have with us Rebecca, and she's the coach of the day. So she's going to be our knowledge that's going to be transferred today. So Rebecca and I will be interacting back and forth. I'll be asking some questions and covering some things with her team, and then I'll provide some additional information also. So Rebecca, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm a fourth year coach um, in the western suburbs, and our team has been started the year right after COVID. So we were still in masks, and we had a rookie team. Of that, we had 3 members that kind of stayed together for 3 years. So we were a multi-age or multi-grade team, which had some challenges, but also some opportunities for growth for the older students. We have had success every year. Every year has been different because the team is different, and even the members that come back are different each year, depending on where they're at in their interests. My son is an 8th grader, and he may pop on if you guys want to hear from a student. But right now,
It's turned up as high as it will go.
Right now he is gaming. So.
All right. So he's burning up your bandwidth. Okay. Well, if you glitch out, we'll have him have to step aside for a moment. So with your team, and turning to one of the first topics we're going to talk about is guiding the team, getting them to bond together, create either sub-teams or leadership roles. Was that something that your team actively tried to do, or did it happen by accident? And how can new coaches help to get their team to be cohesive and have leadership roles arise in their team?
Okay, great question. I'm going to share with a little bit of my philosophy, and I do not have a background. Transform to be an organized person. They were looking for a coach. I stepped in because I can organize, and my son was passionate about Legos. I am not even passionate about Legos, so I'm laying it out there, very transparent. What I do know is how to work with other people and how to ask questions. So I came at our team development from the core values as the foundation. And if we're not having fun and we're not learning, then why are we here? Let's be curious. I try to instill in them that, do you like to hang around people that are rude to you or mean to you? And even if you are the smartest person in the room, if you are not kind, nobody wants to listen to you, and you don't have anyone to share it with. So our first year, basically we broke up into sub teams based on gender. and who was sitting next to each other because no one knew each other. That was our rookie year. It worked. It was a little challenging, but we also were working with fifth graders that didn't know each other. As each year has progressed, it's gotten easier. One of the things that we were coming from different places, so we weren't all from one geographic location. So that was challenging. So we kept it very simple, like, icebreakers, like, what's your favorite candy? What's your favorite color? When's your birthday? Doing simple like games, like builds of Legos, like represent this art piece, or show me the emotion, a sad emotion. Here's an emotion. Make a build in 5 minutes, and then everybody guesses. When we did sub teams last year, people picked who they wanted to be the sub team with, and then as coaches, we kind of went in and said, okay, well, let's put someone that's not strong in coding with someone that is strong in coding, so that we could balance that, so everyone would know how to do the skill.
Yeah,
And
let me
then
jump in.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, let me jump in. You talked about, before we get too far into the sub teams and the other areas, the engagement with each other. You mentioned that your team doesn't know each other and you would use some activities to become engaged. Uh, is that something that you purposefully tried to do in order to get the team to know each other? And where did you find those resources? Where did you find some of those activities?
Some of those activities, I did it purposely so that people would talk to each other. So they would get comfortable. Some of the activities I found online, some of them I pulled simple ones from either Girl Scouts or seasonal, like linking something to a holiday, or the seasons changing, or hey, what's everybody's favorite candy? And then for Thanksgiving, we had a Friendsgiving where everybody brought their favorite candy to share, mindful that we had already talked about who has allergies and what that challenge might look for them, and being inclusive in bringing our favorite candy that everyone can use.
All right, and then how did you encourage your team members when they started to deviate from that, or they actually started to just play and do other things outside of that? How do you redirect the cats that are loose in the arena, and how do you redirect them back together?
So our rookie year, we had a lot of scissors, those long scissor-like things that they would make. I don't know if anyone else is familiar with them. Or we had a box, and the builds went in a box, so that they were built. We recognized them, and then we set them aside. It did get easier as they aged and got more interested in it. But every year we added a new member, and some years those members were not as engaged in the process. So I would try to see things that they might be interested in and talk with them individually. What are you interested in? What do you like to do? And see if we could make that an activity. Like, they're in charge of doing the thank you note, or I'm trying to think what else. I don't know if that answers your question, but it is challenging. And there are some times when, one year I had a member on the qualifier day. We got there at 8 a.m. and he asked when he could leave. As a coach, that's a little tricky. And I said, it's 8 a.m. We clearly communicate, both your parents know 5 p.m. is when you can be picked up. I need you to just, think of all the hard work the team has been put together. And that was a rough day to keep him engaged, but it ended up working out.
Okay, let's move back to the leadership roles that you talked about. So many teams like to break things into different groups, subgroups, roles. How can you get the kids to take charge and the students to develop those leadership roles so that they move into them rather than the coaches saying, all right, we need a leader for this, a leader for that. How can you get the team to move towards forming their own leadership roles and their own sub teams?
Um, well, I'm excited about this year's team because it's a team of eighth graders. So it's exciting to sit back and see what stuck that you poured in, all the coaches poured in. This year they threw it out, and the discussion was led by them how they were going to break it down. And they had what do they call it? Leaders and like sub like assistants, kind of like if you're gonna be a lead on robot and robot design and robot game, then you're assisting in the innovation project, and then the innovation project leaders are assisting with the robot, so that not you can't just pick I'm only doing project and I'm only doing robot. So everyone has ownership in all sides. um, Prior to that, in other years, we assigned members together, and then we would shake it up. Like we'd go on a mission based, you're working on this mission, but with the understanding that if you don't attend regularly, another team member will step in. And that's why you document in your engineering notebook so that people know what's going on.
All right, and how can you move them from formulating the teams and formulating some ideas of what they need to get done to actually setting goals that they move towards to achieve? Do you have any experience in getting the team to set their own goals and move towards those and achieve certain milestones by certain dates?
The one thing that we have done previously is we used one of the big trifold boards, and I have a picture of it, but I am, and we have one section that said, let me see if I can do this. My son was trying to show me how to do this, and okay, I am going to try to share this, and
Success.
okay, I've got to find the right picture because of,
I see a stack of books, greeting cards,
okay, do you see a
trifold.
trifold?
There's a trifold with post-it notes.
Okay, that is um, what we used. Um, so to break it down so that they would know what to do. And this was more kind of coach led, and then they would take over and move it from place to place, and they would write their names on it. So the things they always needed to do, and then broke down the robot and the project, and it worked with various success, like anything. I think it was good for them to see the scope of everything that needed to be done.
All right, and as your team was moving along, when did you first, in your experience as a coach, get introduced to the idea of the first Lego League rubrics? When did you suddenly have somebody use that word and look at them saying, what is that?
That was the first year, and I would say I was overwhelmed. But what I found interesting was that all of the students, the members, are used to rubrics from school. A lot of them were. So they understood the kind of the concept of it. And just reading through it.
Yeah, and so for the coaches that are new to this, the rubrics that we're talking about, and hopefully you've had a chance to at least explore them, but if you haven't, I'll start from the very beginning. And then for those that have some experience, perhaps this will add a little bit to the knowledge you do have. During the judging session, the judges are asked, let me preface this by saying, I have judged for all of the 6 years that I coached and for the 5 years since that time. So well past 10 years now, I think I've judged or refereed at state events and local events. So I've spent a lot of time in the judging room, and the judges take this very seriously, and they They try to find the answers that fit the rubrics from the team, and they try to question the team. So the judges do try to draw out the information we're going to look at here, but it is the team's responsibility to make sure that they discuss every rubric. And we'll go through this in a minute. The feedback form that's on the screen now is one that it's always been used in the past in one form or another, either a box that we could put the information into or a document like this. This is the feedback that goes straight to the teams, and it's designed to be encouraging while also pointing out those areas that may need some additional work. And the purpose of this is hopefully the teams take a look at it before they advance to the next level. So it's set up with great job, and the judges will put in the information where the team excelled and where they did a good job showing something. We try to put in one entry for each team in each area. The think about is the criticism component, and that's the critique, but it's done in a manner that hopefully leads the team to consider other things, such as think about talking with more professionals about your project and using the feedback to further refine your project. Think about building a working model. Think about creating a drawing. Think about creating a script or practicing your script. So that's designed to be essentially criticism, but in a constructive way. There are also areas for the judges to identify teams that fit within certain categories. If they're a breakthrough award, they had some adversity or they made great progress. Rising All-Star, just a team that is doing a great job. Motivate is essentially a team spirit type award. But then we get into the actual rubrics. And this is an area where the judges will check, and we'll look at the project first. The judges check a box, and under each area, it's either beginning, developing, accomplished, or exceeds. There are two components or two styles of answers here. One is quantitative, that there's an actual number, and if the team achieves that number, then they'll get credit for it. So if we look at iterate, under that one, minimal sharing with the solution with others. Okay, well, that's if they only share with a very small number. The next box is shared with at least one person or group. So if they share with one person or group, that's the checkbox. The next area, shared with multiple people or groups. That one, these are quantitative. If someone shares with more than one, then they're going to get the third check. If they shared with only one, they're going to get the second checkbox. And this is the area where teams will receive their actual award, and the points are based upon these. There are others that are a lot more subjective. The very top one, identify, where they have an unclear definition of the problem, or a partially clear, or a clear definition of the problem. This is where I talked about it's the team's responsibility to clearly articulate this to the judges. So the teams need to look at these rubrics early on, and the students, the team members, should understand these rubrics and go through them so that they understand as they're putting their presentation together, we need a clear definition of the problem. Well, one way to transmit to the judges is to simply state, we identified lots of possible solutions, and our solution to this problem is X. And identify the problem is bleaching of coral. And I hate to suggest anything, I always try to stay off topic a little bit. But if they identify the clear problem, the cause of the problem, and then the next area is their planning and solution, et cetera, as you move down in these rubrics, the team should study this in order to determine what do we have to say to the judge to achieve the accomplished level. And then number 4 is exceeds. This is a very rare occurrence for most teams, certainly in the first regional competition, the first qualifier, you don't get a lot of exceeds. The exceed, if a judge marks exceed, we must put down a written explanation why that team went above and beyond. So for clear definition of the problem, and I don't have an example I can pull up right away, but if the team identified the problem, showed pictures of it, uh, went through ad nauseum what the cause was, and tied it all together for us, that would probably be an exceed. That they defined the problem, the underlying causes, and showed us pictures of the problem. So that would probably be an exceed or close to, and similar for the remainder of them. So that's on the project. Robot design has the exact same type of breakdown. So you're beginning, developing, and accomplished, together with the exceeds. So each of these, during the presentation of the robot, the team needs to state, for example, identify clear evidence of mission strategy. The team needs to state to the judges, our mission strategy was, and proceed forward with explaining what the mission strategy was, and then clear evidence that that all team members contributed ideas. Well, Rebecca, you just touched on this a minute ago when you said that your team sets up so that you have leaders, and then those leaders swap roles and are in a support role for a different area. That's something that the team must communicate to the judges in order for the judges to be able to check the box that there's clear evidence that all team members contributed ideas. So it's more than the team just stating, everybody on the team contributed clear ideas. They need to explain how they did that. Oh, we all contributed. If we led in one area, then we participated in a support role in another area. So that needs to also be communicated to the judges. So these are the rubrics, and I encourage every coach, print these out, go over them with all of their team members, have the team members parse out all of these rubrics, and then as you're getting closer to competition, looking at accomplished level number 3, has your team clearly done each of these, and do they have it in the presentation that's going to the judges? If there's shared with multiple people and groups, the team members could take turns saying, we shared with this group and they give us this feedback. Another member could say, we shared with this group and they gave us this feedback. And then someone else, we shared with 4 other groups and presented that and had a survey that they filled out and gave us feedback. That's going to be clear evidence that they shared with multiple people and groups. I mentioned the feedback. That's going to be one that touches upon the exceed area, that not only did they share it, they got information back from that group, and they used that in an iteration or a revision of their project and their robot. So those are the beauty of the rubrics is you have at this point as coaches the exact form used by the judges when they judge the team. So you know exactly what the judges are going to be looking for and listening for, and it's up to the team to put that into the presentation. Those rubrics can be found on the First Inspires website, and it's under the FLL Challenge resources. So all of these documents are available on the FLL website. Turning back to Rebecca and the questions, as we're looking at the rubrics, how do you get your team to use these rubrics? How have your team members examined them, parsed them out, understood what the judges are looking for? What's the main way that you've done that?
So I'm going to tell you the main way that we did it, and then I'm going to say the way that I just, while listening to you present, I'm like, oh, I have another way that I think could be interesting this year. So typically, our teams write scripts for their presentations, and they go through the scripts and highlight what does it answer this rubric and how many times. We try to maybe mention it 2 different ways in 2 different parts of the script. As well as if we have any visual aid that would complement that script or that rubric in the script. So that if for some reason the judge is making a note and they miss that little 10-second spot of the presentation, that maybe they'll hear it another way or see it another way. While you were presenting just there, the rubrics, how the team is set up this year, we have the main leads on robot and project, and then robot is sub lead for project and project is sub lead for robotic. So I am going to see if the team would like to do the rubrics, have the innovation project leaders review the rubrics for robot, since they're not as attached to that area, and have robot maybe judge innovation project with against the rubrics to kind of get them to do some cross training. It's just a different idea to have them integrate together.
And looking at the project, and we're going to jump to another topic real quick because we're pushing up on 7:30 or so. When the teams, and my experience has been that as the team starts to explore problems, they go off and scatter in so many different directions. Particularly, I feel this year, we have only literally, I think, 2 words: explore, ocean. And that's it for the problem, unless maybe you picked up slightly different, but that's it. How to help people that explore the ocean. And so the teams are going so many different directions. How do you get them to cut down the number? Give me just a second. There, thank you. How do you get them to reduce the number of problems they're exploring and move towards a final selection of just a couple of problems to consider?
So when they were a younger team, I made a worksheet that gave the prompt for the innovation project and said, my idea is, with a box and a little bit of research, like I would contact this person. And then they would present to the team, and then the team would vote by secret ballot so that we wouldn't have, we were also a mixed gender team. So sometimes we'd have the girls vote in a block, and, all the things that you would expect to happen in a regular workplace happen just in a little microcosm on the team. Last year we did the same thing. We didn't do a worksheet. Everybody was responsible for coming and presenting 2 ideas to have it thoroughly thought out and a little bit of research done to even know whether it's been done or not. That looked different. One person had a 4-page, single space document. Some people had an idea or a sketch on a note card. They presented, and we voted with secret ballot, and we ranked them based on that. And then we looked at the top 2. And those top 2, the people that brought those forward, were responsible for going back and researching a little more. And then the team voted on those top 2.
Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you how we followed a very similar pattern. One of the things that I was surprised at how effective it was, we took the problem, and instead of the student who was the advocate for that problem, we took it away from them, assigned it to someone who was against it, and shuffled the problems back and forth. Everybody was responsible with coming up with an argument why this is the best problem to go with. So anybody who was adverse to it, they were assigned essentially the flip side of their argument, and their problem was assigned to other people. I was very, very surprised at how the students took it upon themselves to really try to succeed in proving someone else's problem and bringing it forward. So along the same lines that you had, where they would be an advocate for their own problem, research it up, explain why. One area that you can try is to flip it and have everyone else explore, or if you're limiting it down to 2 or 3 problems, then everybody just simply explores why these are the best problems rather than assigning individual ones. So just a different way to approach it that was surprising at how well that worked. And then as you're getting closer, how do you get the team to finally narrow down when you have 3 ideas that you're working with and moving towards? How did you get a team to move towards a final problem?
We really stuck with the secret ballot. Like it seemed to work. Everybody liked it. Everybody felt heard. And that I do like what you proposed, like having them support or pro or con against ideas, but we did the secret ballot and that really worked for us. One of the challenges, I think, as a coach is to let the process marinate and develop at the pace of the team. For instance, last year they did a prosthetic and they wanted to do a 3-in-1 for a triathlon. As a coach, I knew that you don't use a prosthetic in the water. That's illegal. They even mentioned, hey, I wonder if somebody wants to research what the actual rules are. And that stayed with the team for 4 weeks. And I just sat as a coach going, yeah, this is. And eventually they had an expert that said, that's illegal. And then it dawned on one of the members that brought the event, the subject forward that, oh, well, we can't do it. But the ownership was so tight. And I think that had we done the pro and con, like you had mentioned, that ownership might not have been as tightly held.
All right, and let's turn now to taking a look at robot strategy. And one of the areas that teams repeatedly are need additional work. I don't want to say they're deficient, but as a judge, one of the areas that I see come up quite often, and this is an area that even if your robot never leaves home or base, you can still get full points and exceed in the robot judging, which is strategy and the initial examination of robot capability and constraints and planning out which missions to accomplish. How do you move your team towards an actual strategy rather than let's build this robot and go out and try it?
I think the first year is let's build a robot that works and just code, because that's why they were all there. So the focus that first year was really building a robot, getting it to successfully complete a few missions, everyone feeling good about it. Project was not the emphasis. Did we present a project? Yes. And it came together, but we allowed the process to happen. As far as robot design and strategy, I feel like in the past 2 years, the team has developed to be able to critically think through that themselves, some better than others, but they have looked at the board and looked at like what size of robot, what kind of attachments will we need? How many attachments do we want to do? How many, like, what is our goal? Do we want to complete all the missions? Do we want to build our own robot? Or do we want to use the two bases that you can build?
Yeah, and I've had teams on both sides. I've had teams that they go crazy and they just over engineer and build so many different transportation mechanisms and forklifts and all kinds of things. And I would encourage coaches to get the team to take simply 2 beams and put them in an L and have the students examine the board. What missions can you satisfy by just lifting? If you were to put that on a motor and simply lift, how many different missions can you accomplish? And I used to call it a stick. If you just had a robot with a stick and that stick went up and down and that's it, and that's your limitation, how many missions can you satisfy with that? The follow up to that would be, all right, you have a robot that can ram into stuff. How many missions can you satisfy by just pushing something? And push anywhere you need to push. And then you can further refine the robot to create an area that's a contact surface that it can push things. This year in particular, as I looked at all of the missions, there are quite a few missions now that are simply lifting missions. And it may have a little bit of a rotation to it, but there are many, many points on the board where the team can simply lift. And if coaches are finding that the team is lost or over designing, which that's probably the biggest problem. I had one student, he thought mechanically and he just loved to make claws and grabbing items and extenders that would extend out about 12 or 14 inches and then collapse back. Many times they didn't fit the missions. So it was a matter of him designing something and then finding a use for it. So pulling them back towards an area that achieves points is perhaps one way is to simplify everything. All right, your robot has a stick, and what can you solve with that? All right, your robot can smash into something. Where can you get points by smashing into something? So I think if I looked at the missions correctly, I think there's about 4 things that are robot just pushing. And so you can achieve points by pushing on things, and probably another 6 that are lifting motions. So there's some areas there that I think that teams could move towards a strategy of solving everything possible with what you have on your robot, and then move to the next, and then move to the next, and adding on. So, any experience in that area you'd like to share with people before we open up to questions here?
Not necessarily in the robot design or build. One thing that we did do is to work as a team, is to cross train so that people, we were a post-COVID team, so everything was fluid. So maybe somebody launched all the time, but they weren't going to be there. So somebody needed to learn how to launch. And each year, as the team has progressed, we started without jigs, and then we were reliant on one person knowing where to launch. The next year, they built a jig. Then they realized that for our team, a jig moved because the person holding the jig would move, like it didn't work. So then they are using the same spot, which was a hard sell, but they worked with it and then saw the beauty of if they start from the same place on each side, that anyone can step in. And keeping the robot design simple and the attachment simple means that everyone can learn how to do it in case of emergency. The other thing that we did that I think was very helpful is we had a call sheet. So they knew one person was in charge, like launch the code names and attach the attachment at a certain position, launch when ready, and could make the call whether they needed to pivot during the game or not.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good idea. I think teams should determine how they're going to launch their robot and try to do that the simplest way possible, not counting squares, not trying to visually put the robot somewhere. If it's a jig, use a jig if the jig's not going to move and it fits the rules. But determining where to launch the robot and trying to do that consistently, launching from the same place, and then using programming to get the robot to go wherever it needs to go. So if I've seen teams, they line up 1 square over, and then on run 3, they have to line up 4 squares over. Rather than doing that, if you can always launch from the same location, then program the robot to move and have a little bit more efficiency that way. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions now and see if we've touched upon areas that have brought up some questions. We'll talk about anything. One of the things we will not talk about is how to solve missions. That's not what this program is about. We're not going to be able to provide you any guidance on robot actual design. It's the strategy and meeting the rubrics that we're focusing on for this presentation. So if you have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and just jump in. Hearing no questions. Nobody wants to start, right?
I have a question. Hi,
Great.
everybody. I'm Joan Mendelson, and I work with Chicago Public Schools, helping about 100 teams get on their way. So this is all music to my ears and things that we think about quite a bit. My question is about the scripts. I, having been a judge, tend to discourage scripts, but to rather encourage like note cards that have a few key words on them. Because I find when kids read from the scripts, first of all, they sort of burn up a lot of time reading, like their 5 minutes kind of goes. And second of all, I don't really know whether they wrote it, whether they were helped to write it, I don't really know whether they have much understanding. So when they do heavy on the scripts, I tend to learn more from the question and answer to see, whether they really are behind it. But my question for you is, do you switch, the scripts to get them started? I love your idea of having the main points be expressed 2 different ways and also with visual aids to make sure that it comes across. But is there a point where you get them to just, since they use the scripts, to now go a little bit more conversational and make conversation about it? Or are your judges, pretty receptive to giving them a good score even when they're reading from scripts?
So I'll clarify. So we start with a script and then they memorize it. So that they're not reading off a script. And that has evolved. Not every member has that skill or feels comfortable. So the past year we had kind of a moderator, like an interviewer, like it was we were the Paralympics, so that there was like broadcasters. So one of them had a script as if she was a broadcaster. And then the others memorized their script. The judges seemed receptive. They during the answer and question part, this is my son Jack. He's an 8th grader, so if you have questions for him, during the question and answer, when they answered, they were supposed to add to the answer and show a core value. I learned how to code this particular mission, and then I showed how to do, and coding is not my thing, but I showed how to do the loop-de-loop, and I taught Eli how to do it. So that it showed throughout the team that everyone was involved. I don't know if that
And let
answers.
me, yeah. Yeah, as far as building the script, when I say script, our teams would move away from actually reading anything and have everything internalized. I would say first memorize, and then after memorization comes internalization, where they actually understood what they were trying to say. We would build the script by taking the rubrics and then writing one sentence of the information, the data that you want to convey to the judge. We called Stormy Musgrave and he told us blank. So that's the data that you want to transfer to the judges regarding that uh, particular rubric. And so they would go through all the rubrics, writing down the data that they need to transfer to the judges. From that, they would then create a script. They, at some point during this process, would select a theme, and the presentation would follow some theme. One year it was hydrodynamics, so it was a water theme, and they were presenting something in a water theme area. Another time it was into orbit, and so they did a Star Wars theme and presented as though they were Star Wars characters. And they would then integrate the theme into the data, shuffle the data, and then turn that into actual lines that get delivered by people. And each character then would have their lines that they need to deliver. They would then run it through and refine it, and that would become the script. But since they built it from the original data, they knew what they needed to transmit to the judges. So even if they messed it up and it came out in the wrong order, they would jump in and somehow jam their line in. Even we coached them to, even if you're out of order on the script, throw your line out there so that you say it to the judges. If you miss that, then as Rebecca pointed out, during question and answer, somebody clue in one of the other students to get them to say their line there to the and transmit the data to the judges, so that they had all of the data, and then they had the backup information, which is what Rebecca also alluded to, the core values and some of the other information that did not come out in the presentation that the students knew they needed to transmit to the judges. And so they would fill the question answer and essentially get to the point where they never shut up. When one question was asked, they would go, and then another student would build on it and build on it, and it would be a cascading effect that they would bring out all this more additional information to the judges. So it's not a script where they're reading from it. There are teams that they don't have enough time, so they do have to read from the paper. As a judge, I recognize that. I do not hold it against them and penalize them in any fashion, the fact that they have to read it from a script. During the question and answer session, then as a judge, I explore, do they know this information? And so I'll ask them, say, hey, you talked about this. Can you explain a little bit more how you got to that point? Can you explain how that works? Where did you come up with that original idea? So as a judge, I would explore the script to find out what they actually knew and what they learned as they went along, trying to pull out any information I could. So when I talk about script, it's at one point it is a script, but then the students learn it enough that they are just internalizing it to the point that they have the dialogue with the judges, which is the ultimate goal. So Joan, I agree 100%. The ultimate goal is a dialogue with the judges and a conversation. And if they're doing that and the script was a vehicle to get there, then that's great.
Okay. Fantastic. Good stuff.
Additional questions from anyone? I'll call on people. Should I do that?
As a new team, so we run a rookie team. What would you say is the best way to kind of get the kids to kind of focus? It feels like they're kind of all over the place, and sometimes it's like herding cats. And sometimes it just feels like they just want to like build random things as opposed to actually pay attention.
Oh, I understand, and I use the example with the cats running around. There was a team that my students on my team was interacting with. The word cat happened to be in their name also, and our team went over, and all of the team members on the other team that we were mentoring were meowing and under the Lego board eating snacks, and really couldn't move anywhere other than snacks and meowing a lot. So it was one that it directly comes in line with what you're asking is how do you motivate people to move towards something? If you can have any outside influence, if you can bring any teams in to help them, sometimes students helping other students moves it along quite a bit more. The other thing to do is we would try to identify the trigger to the movement away from the project. Was it two people getting together that we knew when they were together, it's always going to be something where they're going to start moving somewhere else? If so, then trying to keep them separated. The third way, and this goes to Joan's board that she used, we had a couple of similar methods that we would use to try to keep people on task. One of them was in the very beginning of every meeting, putting down the goals. And we happen to use a whiteboard. We would put down what are the goals for this meeting. We've got our meetings were at school. We had 3 hours in the afternoon, 4 hours on Saturday, and we met 3 times a week. So we had about 10 to 12 hours a week. So we really had to be focused if we were going to achieve something. So at each meeting, putting down the goals, getting the students to say, okay, what do you want to get done today? And, snacks, great, put snacks up there. What time do you want to do snacks? Okay, we're going to do snacks at 11:10. And what time are you going to end snacks? Okay, we're going to end snacks at 11:30 and 20-minute snack. So we would incorporate what they do want to do, incorporate the distraction as a scheduled event. And so rather than having them move off and starting to do their own thing, we could redirect them and say, snacks are at 11, so or 11:10 or whatever time they picked. So we would redirect them using their own buy-in from the schedule that they created and then the goals that they created. So we would move them that direction if it was a very, very large problem that was a continuing problem. Rebecca, I don't know if you had any similar way or different way you could redirect the crazy cats.
From a rookie team, we had about 20 minutes of focus time at best in a slot. Yeah. So we would break that up. We're like, we're going to focus for 20 minutes and then we're going to take a break. And whether that break would be snacks or whether it would be somebody like doing a 5-minute fun build, or doing some jumping jacks, or just trying to keep them engaged. But it is tricky. And sometimes as a coach, you may wonder whether you're making an impact because you feel like you're all over the place. But it does make an impact. And the rookie team is when they're excited. So if you can make it like pique their curiosity, oh, I do wonder, that is really cool. Maybe you could share that with the group, whatever gadget gizmo they make at the very end, like to acknowledge the build and what they want to do. Or I see that you're really, I don't know, find something that they're really interested in or passionate about. But it is hard. It is a real struggle.
Yeah, I think getting them to buy into it, I found that we had the most diverging from the task at hand when the students did not really understand what they were supposed to be moving towards. They didn't understand the rubrics, they didn't understand what the final goal was at. We, one year, we fixed that by finding on YouTube videos of teams at World presenting their projects and playing 4 or 5 of these videos to show them this is what a world-class team does. They've taken their project and then we reverse explore that. So, okay, we watched the presentation. Here's the rubrics. What was their problem? Where did they state that in the presentation? Can you put the video at whatever time slot it is where they talk about the problem? Where did they talk with professionals? And show us in the video where they are talking with the professionals. So we kind of take apart the videos from the world-class teams. And by doing that, we found that, oh, well, our team members just didn't understand where they were supposed to be going. So they had all the energy, no focus, no direction. Now they understand that, oh, this is the project. This is what it looks like. This is how you present it. And then they saw some of the fun things other teams did. And, oh, we're not doing a report in front of a class and sitting there reading a script. We're going to act out. We're going to make these costumes. We're going to have these large presence on stage and do some of these things. And that got them moving that direction a little bit more. So I think one of the causes of the crazy cats is a lack of understanding of where they need to get to. So showing them where they need to get to, either through the videos, showing them the robot solutions. Other teams are currently posting their robot solutions right now. And for purposes of exploring ideas and exploring different ways that they're doing it, that's a good use of those videos, as opposed to, you don't want to go in there and say, okay, we'll just copy that. But take a look at how other teams are exploring this, and that helps your team to get a little bit of a direction to go one direction instead of going all over the place.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
Our team is in our second year. We're going to be doing a scrimmage for the first time. How did you incorporate that in the learning journey, or what kind of goals did you have on a scrimmage?
So our baseline for ours is core values and having fun and realizing that we're using a toy to do engineering feats, so that sometimes our robot will not perform how it has in the past. It may do some unique movements, and to be able to be disappointed publicly but not show it. So when we prepare for scrimmages, we practice, we take it as a learning experience, so that we can gain information and pivot and change where we need to. Sometimes we're ready for a scrimmage and sometimes we aren't. We are like, we don't have a presentation. We're just going to go and share. But I feel like it's very important to get to that first scrimmage if you have an opportunity, or to present in front of your parents or other teachers, so they can, get used to that idea. So the first time they present isn't at like a qualifier or do a time.
Yeah, and I think I have to agree with that it's an opportunity to talk with individuals that are in the role of a judge, get the kids to come out of their shell a little bit, have an understanding that they can interact with adults on the level that is required for this particular activity, getting them to simply talk about what they've done so far. At the scrimmage, it's not expected that they're going to be presenting a finished product. It's a product in process. So for our team, and I'll agree with Rebecca on the core values, every event, every single thing we did, the number one goal was have fun. So anything they did, it was there to have fun. I don't think that anybody on any of our teams ever felt stressed out or that they weren't going to have fun at any event. The goals that we would set at the scrimmage is let's get feedback and have them tell us what direction we should go. See what questions they ask you and see if the judges understand your problem. If all we have is the idea of a problem and a general solution, then just present that to them. Talk about what you've done so far in your research and see if you can get the judges to understand the problem and be able to give you some feedback on direction you can go. As far as the robot, we've gone to scrimmages where I think the robot barely left base. And so it's one, okay, just program the robot. If you have a mission where it can push on something, let's just focus on that and see what we can do to complete one run. And launch the robot, have it go out and do something and come back to base or home. And that's a success. So we would take whatever success we could take from a scrimmage and try and get the feedback that we can from the judges to improve from there. But first and foremost, having fun.
I think, Jack, what is, one of the things that we instilled in our team was when you're at the robot table and the robot does something unexpected, or maybe the launcher gets nervous and they move, or it's not perfectly set before it goes. So as soon as it launches, you know that it's not going to score. What is the term that the team has used?
Stellar.
Stellar. Because it's something you can say because you don't want to say, oh man, or oh, Jack, you moved your arm, or don't rush it. So it's just kind of a generic thing. Depending on the tone, you might be able to decide. It also links back to their name, Cosmic Lego Force. One thing that as a coach, especially for the newer teams, you might ask them, how did you feel? Somebody may say they want to absolutely launch the robot, and then they may get in a scrimmage and decide, yeah, nope, that's not where I want to be. Or maybe, was it too loud for them? Do you need breaks when we go to competitions? Just checking in with them. I know some of them are very young, so they may not know that, but I would share, hey, I get overwhelmed when it's loud. So I know that during the day, I'm going to need to take a break and I'm going to need to go outside. Who else needs to do that? You can come with me. Just trying to moderate kind of that energy, or who, when you get excited, gets hyped up and really loud, and who gets really quiet and small. And just so they're aware that, hey, this is how people process things differently. And as a team, how we can support one another.
I think that's good. It's a trial run with whatever you have available and learn more about your team to be better at the next event. Any other questions as we wrap up the hour here? All right, hearing none. Want to thank everybody for participating. This was something new that we were trying, and we launched it just with a quick email last night, so I'm glad that you had a chance to see it. Hopefully, if you got something you thought was valuable out of it, or if you have suggestions on what you'd like to see in another presentation, please let us know. We're going to do another one of these, and it is currently scheduled for November 6th, I believe. And that's going to cover the competition rubrics, core values, and really trying to refine things a little bit and where you go to try to get ready for the competition a few weeks before. So I appreciate everything and everybody participating. Have a good night.
Thank you, and great job volunteering to coach. You're making a difference. Bye.
Thank you.